While the average pilot is staring at a $130,000 invoice for a factory engine that might not even survive the next fuel cycle, the smart mechanics in the hangar are looking in the trash. This is the truth about 10 unwanted engines that smart mechanics are hoarding in 2026. For decades, these power plants were called obsolete, underpowered, or orphans by the mechanics chasing the latest high-performance dream. But in the age of the G100UL solvent crisis, the rules of survival have been rewritten. While the fancy engines are suffering from terminal valve pitting and dissolved seals, these 10 iron relics are thriving on the new fuel. They do not need a factory computer or a $500 an hour specialist to keep them running. But there is a hidden mechanical shadow lurking in modern engine manufacturing that makes these old cores more valuable than gold. Why is the industry's junk suddenly the only thing that works? And are you throwing away the only engine that can actually outlive the FAA? A six-figure invoice lands on the workbench, stamped like a death sentence, $130,000 for a factory overhaul, and not a single guarantee that the new power plant will survive the next tank of Unleaded. The owner's hands are shaking, not from fear, but from rage. The factory says it's just the cost of progress, another price to pay for flying in the age of G100UL. But behind every glossy sales pitch, there is a shadow on the shop floor. Solvent swollen seals, valve faces pitted down to the bone, and a Riemann queue that stretches out longer than some pilots' medicals. One mechanic snaps a photo, an invoice so fat it barely fits in the frame. The numbers do not lie. This is not a luxury rebuild. It is a ransom demand. The engine is not even exotic, just another high-compression Lycoming, the kind that used to run forever on blue gas and a prayer. Now, the parts list reads like a post-mortem. Sodium valves, gone soft, elastomer seals, dissolved, core charge, up 40% since last year. The factory's answer, wait 14 months, pay the new rate, and hope the next batch of seals survives the solvent. It is not the first time the industry has been here. In 1974, the fuel lines stretched for blocks. A BC News ran footage of pilots siphoning gas, engines coughing on whatever they could scrounge. Back then, the answer was simple. Run what you had, fix it yourself, and pray the next ration card lasted until spring. Today, the pain is digital, buried in spreadsheets and shop management apps, but the outrage is the same. The only difference is the price tag, and the growing suspicion that the real solution is not coming from the factory at all. Look in the back of your local hangar. If you see one of these sitting in the dirt, buy it, before the rest of the world wakes up. Here is what the numbers say, stripped of spin. 34%. That is the documented jump in exhaust valve pitting on high-compression piston engines since G100UL hit the tanks. It is a wear pattern that does not lie and does not care about warranty disclaimers. The teardown logs do not blink. 1 in 3 valve faces are eaten alive before the next TBO. 14 months is the new normal if you want an IO540 reman. That is not a typo. The core charge is up 40% since last year. The factory's backlog is a parking lot of dead engines, each one waiting for a part that may never come. Cylinder head temps tell their own story. The old O-470 runs about 15 degrees cooler than the IO540s on Unleaded. Cooler heads, cooler valves, less micro-welding. That is not nostalgia, it is physics. Then there is the Solvent Shadow. Shop aggregates and SDR logs point to a hard number. More than 60% of 2026 fuel system failures tie back to nitrile seals, swollen or dissolved by aromatic-rich G100UL. The FAA might call it a blip, but the teardown bench shows a pile of rubber that has gone soft in a single season. A Riemann manager put it straight. We are running a triage ward, not a shop. The only engines moving to the front of the line are the ones that do not melt when the solvent hits. The message is clear, the data is ugly, and the smart money is hoarding what the spec sheets forgot. Start with the O-470R, called the tractor block. 7.5 to 1 compression. It does not care what badge is stamped on the drum, 100LL, G100UL, even some of that backwards mogas. This is an engine built for abuse. Crack open the teardown log. Torque curve flat as a Kansas wheat field, 230 horsepower at 2,600 revolutions per minute, but the real magic sits lower, just past idle, where it drags a loaded 182 off a muddy strip without breaking a sweat. Micrometer readings on the Stellite-faced exhaust valves show 0.040 millimeters lost after 1,200 hours. That is not new. That is normal. Stellite is what keeps the face from pitting, even when unleaded solvents are licking at the metal. You see a valve like this, you do not throw it out. You regrind, you run it again. No micro-welding, no sodium meltdown. The O-470 does not need a factory priest to absolve its sins. It just wants oil, air, and a little respect. Next up is the Lycoming O-235 L2C, the so-called school bus engine. Every Cessna 152 that ever taught a kid to fly probably ran one. Compression ratio 7:1, iron-lined cylinder walls, carbureted simplicity. Pull a wear chart from any shop that is honest. Cylinder wall. Loss 0.0007 inches after 1,000 hours. The sodium valve crowd laughs, but here is the truth. No sodium in the stem, no hidden heat pipe to rupture, nothing to go soft when the solvents get mean. The O-235's torque curve is not glamorous, but it is broad and steady, delivering what it promises every time. No drama, no waiting for a Riemann cue. If the elastomers in the fuel pump go, you swap them for plain rubber. No proprietary plastics, no core charge that makes you wish you had gone to law school instead. Then there is the O-360 A4M. 8:1 compression, forged steel crank, sodium-filled exhaust valves. This is where the modern factory tried to split the difference, power for the plastics crowd, but enough metallurgy to keep the old guard interested. The sodium valves do their job, shuttling heat out of the exhaust face, but here is the catch. Once the solvent starts swelling the seals, once the micro-welding creeps in, you are looking at a teardown before the time between overhauls bell rings. Shop logs show a 28% drop in thermal conductivity in sodium stems after 1,000 hours on G100UL. That is not a theory, that is a teardown in progress. But the A4M has one thing going for it: chromoly crankcase, dry sump oiling, and a torque plateau that does not punish you for running at low RPM. If you keep the oil clean and the cylinder head temperature under 400, it will give you a fighting chance. Just do not expect the factory to save you when the sodium goes soft. The only armor left is what is already in the metal. 3 engines. 3 ways out of the Solvent Shadow. The O-470, the O-235, the O-360 A4M. They are not pretty, they are not new, but they are what is left when the plastic toys melt and the core charge comes due. Look in the back of your local hangar. If you see one of these sitting in the dirt, buy it before the rest of the world wakes up. Franklin 6A4, caked in dust and dragged from under a tarp, sits at the edge of obsolescence. The factory catalog calls it extinct, and service bulletins do not bother listing it. Yet the Riemann manager's voice is clear. The only monopoly is the one you accept. The Franklin's modular top end, a relic of 1940s engineering, lets mechanics strip and swap cylinder assemblies with a single wrench. No digital readouts, no proprietary torque specs. Find a used jug with good ringlands and you are halfway to a running core. There is no core charge, no official market, just mechanics who know a cracked skirt from a salvageable barrel. The FAA will not hand you a checklist, but the old field approval flowchart still works. Document every step, file, Form 337, and if luck holds, find a DER who remembers Franklin's valve geometry. The trick is simple. Reuse the steel push rods, lap the Stellite exhaust valves, swap in plain nitrile O-rings. No sodium, no micro welds, just steel on steel. G100UL fuel cannot touch these parts. Franklin is not coming back into production, but it does not need to. Every core you save is one less engine in the Riemann queue. Continental O-300, the so-called Orphan 6, is stamped discontinued in the catalog. Shops call it impossible, but geometry tells another story. The O-300's split case design, iron heads, and Stellite-faced valves shrug off solvent-rich unleaded. Teardown is muscle memory. Check for head cracks between valves, measure stem wear, hit the seats with a new A-cutter, reassemble with plain rubber seals. The FAA checklist, Form 337, logbook entry, torque to spec, has not changed since the 1970s. Field approval is required for major repairs, but there is no STC for a full core swap. Still, nothing stops a mechanic from reconditioning what is on hand. Shops that still work these engines keep a stash of iron heads and a bench grinder for valve faces. The O-300 survived the last fuel crisis and will survive the next. Continental C-85, last of the Tractor 4s, follows a short FAA checklist. Inspect the cam for pitting, check lifter bores, polish the seats. No elastomer pump to dissolve, no sodium-filled anything. The C-85's only real enemy is neglect. If the cam is clean and oil passages are clear, it will run another 1,000 hours. The catalog says discontinued, but old-timers know there is always a stash of lifters, rods, and jugs in the back room. Form 337 is the shield. Document the overhaul, keep the paper trail clean, and the engine stays legal. Field approval is not a loophole, it is the last defense for the Orphan fleet. Factory blessing is not required, just persistence and a stack of old manuals. The parts monopoly is a myth. The real threat is paperwork, the belief that if it is not in the catalog, it is dead. The Riemann manager's words cut through. If you can measure, you can rebuild. If you can document, you can fly. Franklin, O-300, C-85, these are not museum pieces. They are the last engines standing when the Solvent Shadow falls. The core reconditioning flowchart is simple. Salvage a block, check geometry, swap what you can, file the paperwork. The FAA has not made it easy, but they have not made it impossible. In the back of a hangar, under dust and tarps, waits the next survivor. Radials do not just survive the Solvent Shadow, they laugh at it. The Jacobs R755, a 7-cylinder brute from the age of crop dusters and bush freighters, sits on its stand like a cast iron warning to the plastic crowd. This is not an engine that needs a digital nurse or a proprietary sensor suite. Its cooling fins are thick as a machinist's thumb, iron cast and ribbed for air, not for show. At cruise, the R755's cylinder head temperatures hover around 485 degrees Fahrenheit, even when the ambient temperature climbs and the fuel runs hot. The airflow is relentless. 7 barrels in a perfect circle, each gulping its own wind, each shedding heat straight to the slipstream. There is no choke point and no back row cylinders starving for air. Every jug runs cool, every valve face stays hard. The Warner Scarab, smaller but just as stubborn, takes the same approach. Iron fins, wide and deep, run the length of every cylinder. The metallurgy is old school, high carbon, high silicon iron, built to shrug off heat cycles that would warp an aluminum head. The Scarab's torque curve is a flat line from idle to redline, pulling hard at 1,800 revolutions per minute and never breaking a sweat. Mechanics who have rebuilt these engines talk about the ease. No sodium, no micro-welds, just stellite-faced valves that come off the seat as clean as they went in. Staring at a radial teardown is like reading a survival manual written in steel. No elastomer seals to dissolve, no plastic baffling to melt, just metal on metal, cooled by nothing but honest airflow and the physics of a low compression cycle. These engines do not just resist the Solvent Shadow, they outlast it. Every Scarab and R755 left in a crate is a ticket out of the Riemann queue, a mechanical relic with a cooling system that needs nothing but open sky and a prop that keeps turning. The modern shop calls them obsolete. The smart mechanic calls them insurance. Wright R1820. The name alone clears a room of plastic parts and factory reps. This is metallurgical armor forged in the crucible of 1,000 B-17 sorties and 1,000,000 crop duster cycles. You want proof? Forget the sales pitch. Start with a teardown bench, a jeweler's loop, and a stellite-faced exhaust valve that has seen more fire than some war memorials. Under the microscope, the story is written in cobalt and chromium. Stellite laid down thick on the valve face, still shining after 1,800 hours of unleaded punishment. The edge is barely scalloped. The wear track, a smooth gray crescent, no micro-welding, no pitting, just a polish line that says, "Try harder." Restoration logs from the old-timers read like field reports from a lost war. One entry, valve face loss, 0.037 mm after 1,500 hours, well within spec. Another, seat relapped, no sign of heat erosion. Reinstall and run. These are not cherry-picked survivors, they are the average. Stellite does not care about solvent blends or the latest FAA bulletin. It shrugs off the so-called solvent shadow like rain on a tin roof. Where sodium-filled valves go soft and modern alloys pit, Stellite keeps its edge, hard at 800 degrees Celsius, immune to the vapor that eats seals and softens plastic. The R1820's metallurgy is not a fluke, it is a blueprint. Cobalt, chromium, tungsten, layered for one job, to take the heat, spit it back, and keep the seat clean. Every micrograph tells the same story. Grain boundaries tight, no signs of corrosive attack. The only thing that wears out is the patience of the mechanic, not the metal. This is why the smart money is not chasing new. It is hoarding the old, one Stellite valve at a time. When the parts catalogs go dark and the solvent shadow creeps in, metallurgical armor is the last line between you and the Riemann queue. You want a way out? Start with a valve face you can trust. That is the difference between a survivor and a statistic. The rest is just paperwork. Half VW isn't a factory number, it's a survival plan. Anyone with a bench, a grinder, and a stack of old manuals can build one. The logs are blunt. Figure on 250 to 400 hours from first teardown to first fire. Most of that time is spent chasing tolerances, not chasing parts. Every case, half gets checked for cracks at the main web. Every prop flange gets blue dye inspected for microfractures. The FAA checklist is short but merciless. Torque every bolt to spec, log every step, and do not skip the end play measurement. The builder's ledger reads like a war diary. Cam lobe pitting, swap it. Oil gallery full of sludge, brush it clean. The only real trick is patience. No sodium valves to rupture, no proprietary gaskets to hunt. Just plain aluminum, plain steel, and a torque wrench. The half VW does not care about catalogs or core charges. It cares about geometry, clean oil, and a builder who checks every fastener twice. This is the part where you stop waiting for the factory to save you. If you're still sitting on your hands, thinking the next shipment of plastic-wrapped miracle parts is coming, you're already behind. The only thing standing between you and a grounded fleet is a pile of forgotten metal, the kind the catalog calls obsolete. The kind that shrugs off solvent and laughs at the Riemann queue. You want to fly next year? Buy a core. Any core. O-470, O-235, Franklin, C-85, Radial, half VW. It doesn't matter if it's ugly, if it's dusty, if the last logbook entry is older than your mechanic. If it's got a crank that turns and a case that isn't split, it's worth its weight in flight hours. Don't wait for the market to catch on. Don't wait for the next service bulletin or the next round of core charge inflation. The only insurance left is what you can drag out of the weeds and stash under your own bench. The solvent shadow doesn't wait, and neither should you. Hoard the unwanted, outlast the extinction. Today, in the solvent shadow of a fuel transition no one trusts, metallurgy beats marketing. The real survivors are not hiding behind plastic shrouds. They are armored in chromoly and stellite, idling at 2,200 RPM, waiting out the chaos. In 2026, endurance is a mechanical choice, not a factory promise. Look in the back of your local hangar. If you see one of these sitting in the dirt, buy it.